Gordon dagen. Grevig härlig fever. Yeah, okay. Interesting little project today. Solar lights. Not really of much use here in Iceland, especially here in the north, in Akureyri, because kind of in the winter time it doesn't get light enough to ever charge them up, and in the summertime it doesn't get dark, so you don't really need them. So, full of interesting things though these. What I'm going to do with these is I am going to replace the LEDs that are currently inside it with a little compatible, so I don't think it's a genuine one, NeoPixel LED ring. So these little gizmos are quite useful. You know, if you live in a climate where you've got lights in the day and darkness at night, obviously they're useful. But these here have an interesting circuit board in there with a YX8050. I've got one here actually. A little kind of controller there which actually charges the batteries when the solar panel is illuminated, and then allows the battery to illuminate the lights when it's dark. So that's a useful little thing to salvage. And obviously there's a solar panel there which I'm not going to attempt to remove. But what I am going to do is I'm going to drill a hole through here and through here to run my data and power cable, because obviously these little these things here need a positive and negative 5 volts DC and a data in to work. Obviously they've also got data out because you can daisy chain them together, and again continuity of DC plus and minus the 5 volts. So in theory you can join these all together, and that's effectively what I'm going to do. Is like this. You still got bits in there. This little baby pops off, and you can pop that into there like that. You can get it in. I've used a little kind of fabric soft foam self-adhesive pad there, because again, you know, it gets a bit chilly up here. Hot glue can get a little bit brittle, silicone the same, so a little bit of flexibility there. And what you do is you pop that into there. This battery compartment here, which usually comes with, again, you know, something that you can use somewhere else. Remote control batteries are useful, clock batteries, you know, because there's very little in that. But it's useful for low current draw devices. You've got a nickel halide AA 600 I'm going to say milliamp hour battery, as Eve says. Useful little marker there for drilling your holes, because if you were to drill holes through there, then that brings your terminals or your cables out through there, and then with your, I use Cat5 cable, that can pop into there from the side, connect up. In fact, this is one, kind of feel like Blue Peter here. So you've got your data out, data in plus and minus 12 volts on that side, and your data out plus and minus 12 volts on that side. And then if you put your Cat5 cable in, obviously you cut these a little bit shorter, soldered terminals, a little bit of heat shrink on there, pop the battery cover back on, and what you've got there is kind of a little self-contained wall light. runs off the power delivered within reason of your little bad boy Arduino here. I'm using an Uno, again, Uno compatible. So you just need your data out. You can take your 5 volts from here. I can't remember the data sheet now, how much current you can draw from the 5 volt rail here. I think it's, I can't remember now because I was looking at this only the other day. I know it's something ridiculous, like only about 40 milliamps on the 3 volt side. But if you're going to be using a lot of these, you can actually run your own power supply, because what you've got there is, if you look at the little feed there, your voltage is actually, as long as the ground is common to the Arduino, you can power this independently. I mean, I'm only using 3. I'm going to put 3 of these together, and I did one of these once before, and it's happy enough just to run off that. I don't use them at full brightness, I don't overdrive them, and they are quite bright in all fairness. The software I'm going to use to program this is FastLED. If you're familiar with the FastLED library, there are a myriad of different effects, but I've also got a script which I'll share with you, which again, on the one I did before, was quite an interesting thing. I used a PIR sensor on one of these little tiny PIR sensors, and what this does is you can get optional ones with a dawn dusk detector as well, but I just ran my Arduino off a relay which was controlled by a Raspberry Pi, which controlled several devices in the house regarding daylight. So at certain times, and obviously remotely, you could connect to the Raspberry Pi and control the power to the Uno. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. That was another complete project. This driveway sensor picked up any kind of movement and changed these with just plain white, antique white in actual fact, from the Arduino LED library. And when they detected motion, they would flash very bright red and blue. So it kind of like made people go, what's going on for Timbo's place? So yeah, what I'm going to do with these is just have some nice effects to start with. The beauty of using a programmable device like this is, yes, you can control it from a PIR, you can control it remotely. So you can have it to come on when you're on your way home or when you're away, and you can do interesting things like, Halloween. You can change the scheme for, there's a palette library there for all sorts of different effects. You want to have a look at the FastLED library if you're Arduino compatible controllers. Christmas, there's some fantastic effects. I'll have to show you the effects I've got in the garden back in the UK. And there's some amazing lighting effect on those lights. So that's my little project for today. So I'm not going to bore you with all the drilling, because we're not talking anything here that you can't do without. I don't need to show you how to drill a hole there and a hole there to allow the cable to come through, and 2 holes in the battery compartment. Just makes it neat, because if you look at that, when that battery's on, you've got 2 choices. Then you can either mount it with screws to whatever you're mounting it to, like a wooden fence or a fence panel, or a bit of grit fill, and just glue it, silicone, anything you like, blob it on there, stick it on there, Velcro pads. It's, and it's actually quite a nice looking light. Yeah, you can have a cable popping through, but pick the cable to match the colour, hide it in the panel. It's a nice little project. I love these little controllers. I love these LEDs, addressable LEDs. I've done loads of work with these. And, it's tinkering at its finest. It really is. The world is your lobster. No one else is going to have a set of drive lights like this. So I will leave this as it is. I will go and knock up a couple up, daisy chain them together, put a little quick library together so you can see them in action, and then when I get 5 minutes I shall mount them on the driveway and we will have a look at what they look like in the dark. Put it all together then. See what you think. Now forgive my enthusiasm, but doesn't that look the dogs rollocks? Nobody's going to have driveway lights or fence lights or wall lights like that. And as I say, this is just a rainbow effect, doing one LED after the other. You know, it's designed actually, the script is for a strip. So if it was a strip you would see it walking along the strip, but it just happened to be what was on that Arduino there. You could clump them into 7s because they're addressable LEDs, so each one has its own separate address, and as such you can send a colour to each one, or no colour at all, to do a chasing effect. Maybe I should do a video on Arduinos. I always assume people know what I'm talking about, but you know, if you need any help with one, just drop us an email and I'll or a comment, and I'll help you with them, because you know, I've been programming obviously for years, but you don't need to be a programmer to work with these things. They are simplicity in itself. You know, the libraries come pre-configured. At most, all you will have to do is tell it what kind of LED you're using and how many you've got. That's it, and connect it accordingly, because obviously, you know, the Arduino needs to talk to these things. So there is a plus and minus rail comes out of the top here on this side where the analog ports are, and then there's a digital output pin, and that is just data. It's just sending information to each one of these LEDs, and you know, you can do it with other controllers. All the controllers are available. Some are more difficult than others to use. Raspberry Pis, for instance. You know, it's the timing with those. The timing has to be spot on with the addressables, and it can be done, but really, a Raspberry Pi, it's a little bit overkill, unless the Pi was doing something else. But this is just a simple little controller, and I've done them with the tiny weeny kind of nanos. I'll show you that project I did with some what do they call it? Coach lamps. I had some antique coach lights, and they just had a standard bayonet fitting for a light bulb, and I brought them into the 21st century, and they look really nice. But yeah, I like these, and as I say, you could put one of these little PIR sensors on to change the mood, so that as someone approached, it could go to just plain white illumination, or you could have a series of effects that you could change light dependent, a press of a button. The scripts are out there for anything and everything. This is just a demo. What I'll probably do with these is have an effect like this, which changes on the trigger of the PIR, whether it triggers to a bit of a flashy warning, or maybe just white. You know, not everybody that comes up your drive is a potential miscreant. It could well be that you just want it to go white, you know, so that it just illuminates your passageway, driveway, fence, whatever. As I say, I'm only using 3 because there's 3 fence posts, but it was running fine, self-contained off the Arduino off this cell. Well, it's a double cell, but if you were to use a larger strip or use many more of these, you would power your 5-volt rail separately. You've got to power this anyway. These will take 12 volts, so if I was to power this on a long chain of these, going back to what I've said in an earlier video, is you can get these little UBEC buck step down, DC step down devices. They're really useful. They're used, strangely enough, in remote control aircraft. I don't do remote control aircraft, but I found these through a link somewhere, and they are 3 amps, 12 volts down to either 5 or 6 volts, and they are ridiculously small, not much bigger than a couple of stamps, self-contained, and they will take 12 volts and step that down to 5. So you could either power this through the USB using that, or take 12 volts to the Arduino and then take a 12 volt feed off that through the UBEC, and then you've got 3 amps of a 5 volt rail. If you've got a long line, you could probably push it to 6 volts depending on what you're going to run. But they're just magical, aren't they? I mean, I could watch them all night. And this is just one effect. I mean, just think of the Christmas one. I was toying with the idea of putting a Christmassy type one on here to show you, with this kind of blue fading into white, you know, that crisp look. And you know, when you live in a country where darkness is popular, well, popular is probably the wrong word, there's a lot of darkness. I love lighting, and I will play with these things all through the winter. In the summertime you don't necessarily need it, and you get dusk. I mean, you could run this at dusk, it would look nice, but it's just something different and something nice to look at. And because it's customizable to whatever effects and triggers and environments that you want, they are unique. You're never going to buy that from a shop. It's nice, it's relaxing. And how much do they cost? Depending on where you live. These are like $4 or $5 a piece. Just go on eBay, it's just a generic solar powered fence light, and you can pick them up in packs of 4, 8, 12. And you're getting some rechargeable batteries and some solar cells and some of those solar detector controller doodahs. You know, you're getting parts that you can reuse somewhere else as well. It's harmless fun. Imagine your staircase. You know, you could put these all along your staircase, so that as you walked up the stairs, these would come on. You could put them in a child's room so that they came on at night and just went off like a night light. You know, you could put these in your garden. I mean, I could just sit here watching these. You know, especially when it gets into the purples. Well, you know, that's my favourite colour. But purples and blue LEDs. You know, there's something about a blue LED in there. Just look at that. It is magical. And, as I said, completely customisable. And if you've got access to a solar panel, I mean, this is a battery bank, yeah, run it off of solar power. But I don't have that luxury. Beautiful.